test-based nutrition? That's a question we get asked a lot here at Zinzino. And in fact, it's a question we ask a lot to provoke people to think about the kind of choices they're making when it comes to their diet, and particularly when it comes to their supplementation. We are living in the 21st century. We can do things differently now, and people have different needs. People have different expectations, and people have ideas about the things that they do, but how often do you check in and see whether or not it's really working out? Because it's far better to assess than guess, and it's far better to do any of those kind of principles than get caught out. At Zinzino, we are pioneers of test-based nutrition. We want you to take a look inside, under the skin, to measure something physiologically, biologically, to see, first of all, do you need to do this? Maybe your current diet is taking care of everything you need. It's unlikely, but maybe it is. Secondly, what can you do about it? Because what we greatly dislike, and it's the opposition to our philosophy, is just doing things for the sake of doing things. Test-based nutrition is about applying your intellect to a problem. It's saying, okay, let's take a look at this, see how things are, and then most importantly, see what I can do. There are far too many people who are offering challenges, who are offering questions. We want to be one of those organizations that gives you answers and solutions. And it all starts with a test. See what it is that you need, and then we will support you to do something meaningful and measurable about it. Test-based nutrition is not a phase, it's not a fad. It is cutting-edge science that empowers people to make better choices every single day. Let's take a few moments to consider the balance test result. I would say that it's the question I most often get asked when I'm out in the field supporting people at events. When I open up my inbox on a Monday morning, people want a little more insight with regards to the balance test. That report that you get back once you've taken the balance test and you're waiting to see what it is your status, and what is it that you can do about it. There's a lot of information in that document, and actually for the majority of people, you don't need to look at it or consider it. We have a huge audience here at Zinzino, everything from people working clinically, medically, health practitioners, nutritionists, people working in high performance sport. But then we have you. We have our priority, which is every single member of the global population. And what we want to give you is actionable information. So we have those headlines, we have those distinct categories right at the top of the first page. And the reality is, for most people, that's all you really need to look at. And that was what I encouraged everyone to do whenever they asked me that question. So let's have a look at what are those categories? What do they mean, and what do they mean to you? Well, first of all, when you look at this, you're going to see your ratio. And that ratio is the balance between the omega-6 and the omega-3. And we know research has shown us that there is a sweet spot when it comes to that ratio. Biology is all about balance. Biology is all about sweet spots, and they're dynamic. They move. And so what we need to do is adjust accordingly. We make changes as we go along the path of life in order to keep things in check, in balance. And that ratio is really important, because when we know that we have the right ratio, when we are within certain parameters, then we know you are in the best place when it comes to your preventative health strategy, that you are putting yourself in the lowest category of risk of really encountering something that you'd rather not. And if you're already dealing with a health challenge, improving your nutritional health status is always a good thing. And this is one of those clear indicators of how to do just that. And so we are looking at literally the arachidonic acid and the EPA, the omega-6 and the omega-3, the pro-inflammatory and the anti-inflammatory. They are both good, but like most things, they're good when they're in the right ratio, when we have the right amount. And the fact is that the modern diet gives us ample, in fact too much omega-6, whilst at the same time often delivering too little omega-3. And so what we want to check is, how is that working out for you individually? What's your ratio? We want you to be less than 4:1, ideally less than 3:1 omega-6 to omega-3. That's where the research will place you in the lowest category of risk. And so when you read your results, you're going to get some insight as to where you currently are today. And remember, the nature of the test is that it didn't measure you on the day you took that blood sample. That is a retrospective. So it accounts for the past lifespan of that blood, which is approximately 120 days. So the information on that ratio is everything you've done, how you've been, the food choices you've made for the previous 4 months. And that's why we will encourage you to retest in another 4 months' time, once you've had the opportunity to implement an omega-3 strategy that we know will work. So that ratio is the tipping point. It's the balance. It's letting you know how close you are to the sweet spot. And then we move across and we have a look at your overall protection value. And this is really the culmination of looking at the total amount of omega-3 you have and how that ratio fits with regards to the balance that's in place. And we give that a percentage as a score just to make it really, really simple. And it's color coded too. And where you want to be is in a high score with a green color. It's giving you a clear insight to the general overall well-being when it comes to your nutritional health status. But let's go down a little bit. Let's have a look at a few of the details that are still worthy of mention. Let's have a look at your cell fluidity, the membrane. Well, we know that when there is a sufficient amount of omega-6 and omega-3 doing their job, well, what do we get? We get really dynamic, we get vibrant cells. And the key aspect of that is that those cells can take nutrition on board and they can get waste products out. And remember, every cell is a copy of a cell that came before it. From 1 cell to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16, 32, 64, boom, 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 until we get to billions of cells. And our body is constantly photocopying itself on a daily basis. And there are certain periods of time in which an entire transformation takes place. And so the choices that you make today with regard to your nutrition, the investment you make in your cells, well, that's creating a better you tomorrow, next week, next month, and next year. And it all starts by looking at the information in that test. So how well can those cells take that nutrition on board? Because the stomach, the gut, is not the end point for nutrition. That's the central hub that divides, that absorbs, and sends it out to where it needs to be. The place where nutrition has its most profound impact is in each and every single one of your cells. But if we can't get the nutrition in, and we can't get the waste product out, well, what kind of quality of cell do you expect to have? And remember, you are those cells. Those cells make you who and what you are. And so when we look at that fluidity, that membrane, how dynamic it is, we are really determining, well, how vibrant is it? How much is it able to enact and do its part? Now we can start to look at other factors that are still in that top category, that top bracket, where I would encourage you to direct your information. And so let's have a look at mental strength. That's actually quite a provocative term, and it's important that you don't misinterpret it, because what we're talking about is a component of omega-3, which is DHA. And just to clarify, in most terms, when we talk about omega-3, we'll divide EPA and DHA. These are the ones that are the marine-based ones, typically consumed through fish or via processed algae. The EPA is often attributed as the anti-inflammatory one. It has more of a role than that, but we don't have enough time to go through the biochemistry of EPA and DHA. So just stick with that thought, the fact that it's the anti-inflammatory part. So its counterpart is the arachidonic acid, which is the more pro-inflammatory. DHA is the one that we really attribute to more neurological factors. And think of this, 60% of your brain is fat, and 20 to 25% of that should be DHA. So if there is a deficiency there, well, that's quite a profound deficiency. And that's why there is so much research that looks at the role of DHA in child development, in cognitive function, in skill acquisition. We want to make sure that we are primed to have a sufficient amount of DHA every single day in order to optimize our mental strength, our brain health. So you can see how these all are a sum of one big part. They all comprise and come together to paint a broader picture. So we have our ratios, our totals. The last one I want to discuss is the overall amount. We want to make sure that we have a sufficient total amount of omega-3. And you will see this indicated by the index or level. And we know that once you're above 8%, So once beyond 8% of your total fat is from the omega-3, then you're in a better protected state. But I want you to be careful of false positives, because that omega-6, like I've said, it's not the bad guy. And we need to have enough of that too. And in fact, it's all too easy when we go back to the ratio to have what we call a false positive if omega-6 is low and omega-3. No, 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 no. We want to make sure there is an ample amount of omega-3 and that omega-6 is above the threshold too. And we give you that information. So as you scan across the top of that document, ignoring the rest because most people don't need to look, you will see a really detailed insight that has got more than enough, but definitely just enough information for you to steer your health in a better direction. And as always, the test is the start point, but it's the action you take afterwards that makes the difference. And it's certainly the action afterwards that's going to influence that second test. And you can manifest meaningful change that's going to empower you to have a better overall quality of life, quality of health, and be better protected throughout each and every single one of those cells.